She's not checking you out, she's running a biological diagnostic that's older than language itself. In the 3 seconds it takes her to glance at you across the bar, her brain has already processed more data about your genetic fitness than any dating app algorithm could calculate. Your symmetry, your proportions, your movement patterns, she's not consciously evaluating these things, but her attraction is being determined by measurements she doesn't even know she's taking. The brutal truth about human mate selection is that it happens below consciousness, in parts of the brain that don't give a fuck about your personality, your bank account, or your sense of humour. Her limbic system is running calculations that would make NASA jealous, measuring the distance between your eyes, the width of your jaw, the ratio of your shoulders to your waist. These aren't preferences, they're hardwired biological imperatives that determine whether her body sees you as fuckworthy or forgettable. Let's talk about symmetry first, because it's the most ruthless filter in her unconscious arsenal. Your face is being scanned for microscopic deviations between left and right sides. A millimetre difference in eye height, a slightly crooked nose, an uneven jawline. These tiny imperfections are broadcasting your genetic load, your developmental stability, your parasite resistance. Perfect symmetry signals good genes that survive development without mutations or environmental stresses. Asymmetry whispers damaged goods to her primitive brain, and no amount of game can override that initial biological verdict. But symmetry is just the entry exam. The real selection happens in your proportions, starting with the golden ratio of masculine attractiveness, your shoulder-to-waist ratio. The ideal? 1.6 to 1. Broad shoulders tapering to a narrow waist creates the V-shape that triggers primal attraction across every culture, every era, every demographic. This isn't social conditioning, it's biological programming. Those proportions signal high testosterone during development, upper body strength for protection, and the physical dominance that her ancestors needed for survival. Women's bodies respond to these ratios before their conscious minds even register you exist. Studies show their pupils dilate, their skin conductance increases, their bodies literally prepare for arousal when viewing men with ideal proportions, all while they're thinking about their grocery list. They'll rationalise it later as he has a nice smile or there's something about him. But what happened was pure biological calculation. Shoulders broad enough to fight, waist narrow enough to run, proportions that promise genetic superiority. Your waist-to-hip ratio tells another story her body's reading. Too wide signals metabolic problems, low testosterone, poor genetic stock. Too narrow might indicate illness or inability to store resources. The sweet spot sits around 0.9. Enough muscle and fat distribution to show health without excess that indicates poor lifestyle or genetics. She's not consciously measuring your love handles, but her attraction is being adjusted by every inch of deviation from the biological ideal. These markers correlate directly with sperm quality, testosterone levels, immune system function, and longevity. Her body knows that selecting based on these indicators increases her chances of healthy offspring, even if her conscious mind thinks she's just looking for someone who makes her laugh. The selection happened in milliseconds based on biological math, and everything after is just her brain creating a story to justify what her body already decided. Beyond these physical calculations, she's running another program that's universal across cultures: age preference. She says age is just a number, but her biology has been doing very specific math for millions of years. Across every culture studied, from Manhattan investment bankers to Amazonian hunter-gatherers, women consistently prefer men 4 to 5 years older. Not 2 years, not 10 years, 4 to 5 like it's programmed into their fucking DNA. Because it is. This isn't cultural brainwashing or daddy issues, it's resource optimization that kept her ancestors alive. A man 4 to 5 years older has had time to establish resources, prove his survival capability, and demonstrate he didn't die from stupidity or weakness in his early 20s. He's old enough to have accumulated power, but young enough to protect and provide through her childbearing years. Her attraction to older men isn't a preference. It's an evolutionary algorithm that maximizes offspring survival. Watch how this plays out in real time. The 22-year-old college girl isn't actually attracted to the 22-year-old college guy, even though they're in the same classes, same parties, same social circle. Her eyes drift to the 26-year-old grad student, the 27-year-old with his first real job, the 28-year-old who doesn't live with roommates anymore. She'll fuck the guy her age, but she's fantasizing about men who've had time to build something beyond a beer pong reputation. The age gap preference shifts slightly based on her economic independence, but never disappears. The female CEO still wants a man older than her. She just wants him to be 3 years older instead of 5. The welfare mother wants 6 to 7 years older because she needs more resource differential. But no demographic of women consistently prefers younger men. Even cougars fucking pool boys aren't looking for marriage. They're extracting sexual value, while their real attraction still points toward established older men. Now here's where modern men get fucked. While women's age preference has stayed constant throughout history, men's ability to establish status by that age has collapsed. Your grandfather had a house, career, and savings by 25. You're 28 with student loans, a shared apartment, and a job that barely covers your iPhone payment. But her biological attraction still expects the resource accumulation of a 28-year-old from 1950, not a perpetual adolescent from 2024. Socioeconomic status isn't just about money, it's about hierarchy position, and women are hardwired to select up the hierarchy or die trying. This isn't gold digging, it's survival instinct. Throughout human evolution, women who mated with higher status men had offspring who survived. Women who mated with losers had offspring who starved. Natural selection doesn't give a fuck about love. It selected for women who could accurately assess and acquire male resources. She evaluates your socioeconomic status through 1,000 unconscious markers. Your posture signals confidence or defeat. Your clothing quality indicates resource access. Your speech patterns reveal education level. Your social dynamics show hierarchy position. She's not consciously calculating your net worth, but her attraction is being adjusted by every status signal you're broadcasting. A man's socioeconomic status affects female attraction more than every other factor combined, while men barely notice women's career achievements when selecting for physical beauty. To understand how complex human selection really is, watch an elephant seal beach during mating season, and you'll see female selection in its most brutal, simple form. The biggest, most violent male controls the entire beach, fucking every female, while smaller males die trying or jerk off in the ocean alone. No personality, no emotional intelligence, no sense of humour. Just 4,000 pounds of blubbery dominance mounting everything with a vagina, while betas watch from the waves. This is mate selection stripped to its core. Physical dominance equals reproductive access. The female elephant seals aren't running complex calculations about emotional availability or shared values. They're getting railed by whichever male can literally crush the competition. It's simple, efficient, and brutal. The strongest genes get passed on, the weak die virgin, and nobody's discussing their feelings about it. Even butterflies, with brains smaller than a pinhead, run mate selection through physical filters. Female butterflies evaluate male wing patterns, UV reflections invisible to our eyes, and pheromone cocktails that broadcast genetic quality. A male butterfly with asymmetrical wings doesn't get laid, period. No second chances, no personality to compensate, no, maybe he'll grow on me. His physical markers fail the test and he dies without passing on his inferior genetics. But humans? We've complicated the fuck out of mate selection by adding layers that don't exist in any other species. A woman isn't just evaluating your physical dominance like a seal, your genetic markers like a butterfly, or your resource display like a peacock. She's running all those programs simultaneously while adding psychological, social, emotional, intellectual, and cultural filters that would short-circuit an animal brain. Your physical size matters, but not if you're a pussy who can't maintain eye contact. Your genetic symmetry attracts her, but not if you're broke, living in your mother's basement. Your resource display impresses her, but not if you're an autistic robot who can't read social cues. You need the physical dominance of the elephant seal, the genetic markers of the butterfly, the resource display of the peacock, and the complex social intelligence unique to humans. You're not competing on one dimension, you're competing on all of them simultaneously. This multi-dimensional selection exists because every man in your office is competing for pussy whether they admit it or not. The guy who stays late isn't just chasing a promotion, he's climbing a dominance hierarchy that determines who gets to breed. The dude who interrupts you in meetings isn't just rude, he's displaying dominance behaviours that women's hindbrains interpret as genetic superiority. Your entire career is just an elaborate mating dance, where resources and status replace antlers and fangs. Male competition never stopped being violent, it just got sophisticated. Instead of crushing skulls for beach access like elephant seals, you're crushing souls in corporate politics. Instead of physical combat, you're engaging in economic warfare. The boardroom is just a battlefield with better lighting, and every promotion is another rung up the ladder toward reproductive success. Look at human sexual dimorphism. Men are roughly 15% larger than women, with 40% more upper body strength. We're not as extreme as gorillas, where males are twice the size of females, but we're not monogamous gibbons with zero size difference either. That 15% size difference tells an evolutionary story. Enough male competition to require physical superiority, but not so much that only the biggest psychopath gets to breed. We evolved for moderate polygamy where multiple men could succeed, but dominance still determined who succeeded most. This moderate dimorphism created a competition sweet spot. You don't need to be the strongest to win, but you can't be weak. You don't need to be the richest, but you can't be poor. You don't need to be the most dominant, but you can't be submissive. Human females select from a range of successful males rather than just the single dominant victor, which means competition happens across multiple hierarchies simultaneously. Your grandfather competed in maybe 2 hierarchies: physical strength and economic provision. You're competing in dozens: career hierarchy, social media hierarchy, fitness hierarchy, fashion hierarchy, intelligence hierarchy, humor hierarchy. Every domain where men can be ranked becomes another arena for competition, another way to establish dominance, another angle to attract females. The competition hasn't decreased, it's exploded into fractal complexity. But here's what's fucked about modern male competition. The hierarchies are increasingly winner-take-all. The top 20% of men get 80% of female attention on dating apps. The higher status men have harems while average men have their hand. Social media amplifies dominance displays so women can directly compare you to men globally instead of just locally. You're not competing against the guys in your tribe anymore. You're competing against every man with an internet connection. Yet dominance alone doesn't guarantee selection because she's also measuring whether you're smart enough to navigate complex social hierarchies without getting murdered by the tribe. Your intelligence isn't just about solving problems, it's about solving them without pissing off the wrong people. The dumbest strong man gets killed by coalition. The smartest weak man survives through alliances. Women evolved to detect which one you are within minutes of conversation. Intelligence in humans isn't raw IQ, it's social calibration mixed with abstract thinking. You need to understand invisible hierarchies, unspoken rules, and political dynamics that don't physically exist, but absolutely determine your survival. The guy who can't read a room is as evolutionarily fucked as the guy who can't hunt. Your ability to abstractly model social reality matters more than your ability to lift heavy objects, because human dominance is determined by coalition building, not individual strength. Watch her test your cognitive abilities through conversation. She's not running IQ tests. She's checking if you can understand context, subtext, and metatext simultaneously. Can you pick up on her hints? Can you navigate the conversation without explicitly stating everything? Can you understand what she's not saying? These aren't shit tests. They're cognitive diagnostics determining if you're smart enough to survive and thrive in complex social environments. Conscientiousness signals something deeper than just reliability. It shows you can delay gratification for future rewards, the fundamental requirement for resource accumulation in agricultural societies. The man who eats all his seeds instead of planting them dies in winter. The man who can't show up consistently can't build anything worth having. Her attraction to conscientious men isn't about wanting a nice guy. It's about selecting for the cognitive ability to override immediate impulses for long-term gains. Social trustworthiness is the ultimate cognitive trait because it requires theory of mind, understanding that others have different perspectives, knowledge, and intentions. The man who can't model other people's mental states can't be trusted because he can't predict how his actions affect others. He's socially retarded even if his IQ is 150. Women's selection mechanisms are tuned to detect this through micro-expressions, response timing, and behavioral consistency. Your abstract thinking ability manifests in humor, creativity, and problem-solving, all proxies for genetic quality. Humor requires holding multiple cognitive frames simultaneously. Creativity requires combining disparate concepts. problem solving requires modelling reality accurately. When she laughs at your joke, she's not just enjoying humour, she's unconsciously validating your cognitive complexity. This cognitive selection created an evolutionary arms race that built civilization. Women's pussy literally built your brain. Every neuron firing in your skull exists because for millions of years, females fucked the smartest males and let the dumb ones die virgin. Your cortex didn't expand to build tools or contemplate philosophy. It expanded because women selected for intelligence, creating evolutionary pressure that turned monkey brains into human consciousness. This wasn't a one-way street. As women selected for smarter men, men's expanding intelligence created pressure for women to evolve better selection mechanisms. Smarter men meant better liars, more sophisticated manipulation, more complex deception. Women had to evolve equally sophisticated detection systems to identify genuine quality versus clever marketing. Every increase in male cognitive ability triggered corresponding female evolution to evaluate it accurately. Think about what this arms race created. Men evolved the ability to create false displays of resources, so women evolved unconscious shit tests to verify authenticity. Men evolved elaborate verbal intelligence to seduce, so women evolved to be turned off by excessive talking. Men evolved to fake confidence, so women evolved to detect micro-expressions of genuine versus performed dominance. Your dating life is a battlefield where millions of years of cognitive warfare play out in real time. The exponential brain growth wasn't gradual, it was runaway selection like a feedback loop on steroids. Smarter men had more offspring, creating smarter children, requiring even better female selection mechanisms, selecting for even smarter men. In just 2 million years, human brain volume tripled. No environmental pressure explains this speed except sexual selection. Women's mate choice drove the most rapid organ development in mammalian history. But here's the mindfuck. This arms race created a paradox where both genders are now too smart for their own good. Men are intelligent enough to overthink themselves out of natural behaviour. Women are sophisticated enough to reject men their biology actually wants. We've evolved past our optimal mating psychology into a state of cognitive overflow where thinking interferes with fucking. Women's selection for intelligence didn't just change male brains, it changed the entire species. Art, music, humour, creativity. These aren't survival tools, they're mating displays that women's selection mechanisms rewarded. Civilization itself is basically an elaborate consequence of women refusing to fuck stupid men. Every achievement of human culture traces back to some prehistoric woman deciding the clever guy was more fuckable than the strong one. This created something unique in nature. Humans broke the fucking rules of evolution. While every other species got locked into rigid mating scripts, peacocks with tails, elk with antlers, seals with size, we evolved the ability to completely reprogram what gets selected. A physically weak comedian can out-reproduce a muscular warrior. A socially intelligent manipulator beats an honest strongman. A creative artist fucks more than a capable provider. We're the only species where the selection criteria itself keeps evolving. This flexibility is humanity's superpower and curse. A peacock can't suddenly decide to compete through intelligence instead of tail feathers, but humans can completely change their reproductive strategy based on cultural context, economic conditions, and social dynamics. The traits that get you laid in Manhattan won't work in Mongolia. What attracted women in 1950 repulses them in 2024. Your personality became more important than your physicality, because humans evolved to value long-term pair bonding alongside short-term mating. Women aren't just selecting for genes, they're selecting for behavioural patterns that predict relationship success. Conscientiousness matters because it predicts resource accumulation. Agreeableness matters because it predicts reduced domestic violence. Openness matters because it predicts adaptability to changing environments. Your personality traits are being evaluated as genetic markers just like your shoulder width. The conceptual flexibility means women can select for completely abstract traits that don't physically exist. Status is invisible, but more powerful than strength. Humour can't be touched, but triggers more attraction than height. Intelligence has no shape but matters more than symmetry. Women evolved to evaluate invisible conceptual traits that only exist in social reality, something no other animal can do. This created a species where social strategy became everything. You can be born with shit genetics but win through behavioural adaptation. You can overcome physical inadequacy through psychological superiority. You can compensate for every weakness by developing strengths in other dimensions. No other animal has this flexibility. A weak elephant seal can't become a comedian seal, but you can completely reconstruct yourself across multiple dimensions. The flexibility accelerates through cultural evolution that happens thousands of times faster than genetic evolution. Women's selection criteria can shift within a generation based on economic conditions, war, technology, or social movements. The 1960s selected for rebels. The 1980s selected for corporate achievers. The 2000s selected for tech entrepreneurs. The 2020s select for social media influence. Your reproductive success depends on reading cultural shifts and adapting faster than your competition. But here's the dark side of flexibility. Nobody knows what the fuck works anymore. Traditional masculinity gets called toxic but still triggers attraction. Modern sensitivity gets socially rewarded but sexually punished. Women say they want emotional intelligence, then fuck dark triad psychopaths. The flexibility that allowed human success also created complete confusion about what success means. The ultimate black pill is that human flexibility made the game impossible to win permanently. In rigid species, you either have the winning trait or you don't. In humans, the winning traits constantly change. What worked yesterday fails today, and nobody can maintain peak attractiveness across all dimensions simultaneously. You're playing a game where the rules change mid-play, the scoring system updates randomly, and the prize itself might become worthless by the time you win it. Yet this same flexibility is why you're not permanently fucked. Unlike the weak seal who dies virgin, you can strategize, adapt, evolve. You can develop intelligence if you lack strength. You can build resources if you lack looks. You can master social dynamics if you lack traditional masculinity. The game is impossibly complex but infinitely playable. Women's selection created a species where any man can potentially win if he understands the current rules and adapts fast enough. That's human mate selection, an impossibly complex, constantly evolving, multi-dimensional competition where the rules themselves are subject to change, but where that very complexity creates endless opportunities for those smart enough to navigate it. She's not just selecting for genes or resources or intelligence, she's selecting for all of it simultaneously, weighted by cultural context, modified by personal experience, and filtered through evolutionary programs she doesn't even know she's running. You're not just competing against other men, you're competing against millions of years of selection pressure that created the most complex mating system in nature.